I hope you had a great time at the gala last night and got lots of rest for another day of insights and learning at 2024 Impact. I'm Kimberly Burfoot, and I've been fortunate to have about 25 years experience in leadership positions, and these have led me to my current role as Eco Canada's Vice President of Finance and Operations. I'm thrilled to introduce you to Soumya Sadiq today, who is a distinguished leader in environmental planning and impact assessment. She has ancestral roots in post-colonial Punjab and Kashmir and is a certified environmental professional, EP, and a registered professional planner. Soumya is the founder of Narratives, Inc., a firm that provides services in impact assessment, conflict transformation, and territorial planning, and Kahani, a nonprofit focused on amplifying lived experience voices and storytelling for peace building. Soumya's work is informed by a keen interest in creating space for multiple knowledge systems and understanding psychosocial barriers to conflict transformation, particularly dynamics of identity, othering, framing, and trauma. Soumya sits on the Minister's Advisory Council as an advisor to the Minister on and Climate Change Canada on implementation of the Impact Assessment Act 2019. In a world where change is the constant, leadership needs to adapt. We need to embrace technology and innovation as pivotal tools for navigating the complexities of a global society. As we delve into today's discussion, let's explore how we as leaders can harness these tools to foster environments that thrive on collaboration, innovation, learning, and resilience, where we can shape a future where leadership isn't about position, where it's about action and influence in a world without boundaries. So good morning. Thank you for being here today and joining us for this topic. We're going to embark on a thought-provoking journey through the realms of leadership in an era that's defined by a lack of boundaries. The integration of technology, and particularly artificial intelligence, is a necessity for leaders aiming to chart the course of the future. These tools can empower us to make better decisions, be more informed, anticipate challenges, and craft our strategies so that we're resilient, adaptive, and inclusive. The essence of our discussion today centers on the pivotal shift of the leadership model, one that thrives on agility, learning, and innovation. We'll explore how embracing this change is crucial for fostering a culture that values continuous improvement and bold thinking, enabling us to lead with foresight and empathy as the environment evolves. We invite you to reflect as we speak on your own leadership journey, the challenges you faced, and the innovations that you've embraced in your own work. Together, let's envision a future where leadership transcends the traditional boundaries, powered by technology and guided by a collective commitment to positive transformation. So Soumya, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
I'm thrilled that we have you here. You have a lot to offer on this topic. So let's start with an easy one. In the context of leadership, what does a safe space mean, and how do you curate one in your organizations?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kim, for the question, and happy to be here. So creating a safe space, I think one of the first things that we want to think about is there's no such thing as we have now arrived at a safe space. It's very much a journey. It's very much an ongoing investment. You can't check a box, and it'd be unfair to ask an organization or a team, do you believe that you have a safe space? Because there's always room to improve. There's always room to grow. In my mind, creating a safe space means a space where people can innovate, a place where people can bring up ideas, where there's no such thing as ideas are not welcome, and a space where we have humor, where as leaders I can raise an idea and say, that was a dumb idea and I'm sorry I brought it up. To me, all of those elements are very much a part of creating that safe space. Creating a safe space, though, does not mean that it's freedom to say whatever you want. None of us, and that's sort of the human existence, if you will, it's not fair to expect a workplace or any setting to be a total, carte blanche to say whatever you want. Absolutely not. We all get to express what we want to within the confines of respect, of reciprocity, of gratitude, of humility. So it's all of those different things that craft together what a safe space is in the workplace.
That's great points. Leaders are able to create a safe space. How do we encourage and coach that safe space to become a brave space for innovation, to really encourage what Kevin Nielsen has a great phrase that he uses, embrace ambiguity. Yes.
Yeah.
So how do we encourage some risk-taking in this safe space and turn it into that brave space?
I think the best way to encourage that is to be doing it ourselves. So one of the things that that I found in my own journey as a woman of color, as a newcomer to Canada, and working in fields that where I was very much a minority at the table or in the room, one of the things that I realized early on in my journey was if I were taking a risk, and I come from a family of entrepreneurs, but one of the things that I was always afraid to do was if I were taking a risk in my decision making, whether that was as a project manager, project director, and recently as a founder of my organizations, was I would do it in private. Like if I were taking a risk, I would wait to see the outcome of that before I would share that out loud with everybody. What's far more constructive and what really amps up the energy in the room is for me to be sharing with my team. We're going to be testing a few things now. ChatGPT, we're going to be testing how that might work for us. And it might be a total failure, but let's give it a whirl together. Or we came across this other AI platform that could take all this content and turn into a PowerPoint presentation. I pulled together a few members of my team and I said, could you run a few tests for us? Like we have all these memos that are sitting in our folders. Let's take a few of those, plug them into this platform and see what it does for us. Everybody was then a part of what that looked like, and I said, test it out, let me know what you think, and then we'll go from there. Great, now they're a part of that decision making, they're a part of that risk taking with me. So bringing people along, I think is really important. It is expensive though, and that is one of the challenges that any leader would have is, should I test it out, but that means it's costing me more money and so on. So I think a balance in those is important.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And we talked a little bit when we were preparing about hierarchy and its role in the organization still, even with our more flattened org charts. There is a place for the hierarchy and for policy and procedure setting, and even and especially around things like artificial intelligence. So how would you suggest that we strike that balance, and where have you set that line in your organization between a safe, brave space for innovation and trying and failing with a limit in policy, procedure, and hierarchy?
What a great question and a loaded question. I do believe in hierarchy. I think hierarchy creates a little bit of certainty. Hierarchy is important so people know, and I don't know, I'm saying this purely from my lived experience. People may love the idea of, I'm going to join this organization and there's no such thing as a boss. Give it 3 weeks and they'll ask you, who do I ask about X, Y, and Z? Or how am I accountable? Like, who's going to proofread my work? And Well, it turns out there is a slight expectation of hierarchy, maybe in a different mode. So what we have at Narratives is we have a hybrid organizational structure, which means that there are, it considers pathways for growth, and it's very much a growth-based model where people can grow in their journey as either project managers or project directors, and so on, or they can grow in their technical discipline. And we have these communities of practice, so you have two pathways for growth. What that does is it embraces this idea of hierarchy. There's clarity for folks for who they can go to, who do they report to, who do they need to ask certain questions, and there's inherent coaching and mentorship in two directions for every individual in the company. So you don't have to be, like, project management is not your only pathway to growth, because I've worked in organizations where that was my only option for growth, and I hated dealing with numbers back then. And I thought, okay, so basically if I want to grow in this organization, I need to be able to love a spreadsheet, and I don't. So creating other avenues for people for growth, I think, is important. So hierarchy, I do believe, is important. And we do have to have a mechanism for policy and procedures. I think there's a lot of benefit in building those together. But what I mean by building those together is not a completely open-ended, hey, 50 members of my team, what do you think this policy should be? Because that'll take a lot of time. It's, here's what we think the policy should be. We've tested it out. We brought together a smaller group. They've run these pilots. Here's what we think the policy should be. Run it with a few people, see what the feedback is, and then roll it out. So building it together does not mean opening it up completely. So we want to be a little bit strategic with establishing direction and policy in organizations.
That's a great point. Collaboration gives us better results, but it needs to be structured.
It needs to be structured.
You can't start with a blank page and ask everyone to go into the file and come up with a policy. That would...
Yeah, just like I wouldn't expect everyone to ask me about every policy. Like, I don't know about 98% of the things in the world, so.
Yeah, that's true. Probably another loaded question, but the last time we sat and talked together was here at Impact last year, and our discussion was on post-pandemic mental health.
Right.
And I'm happy that continuing from that, mental health continues to be a very open conversation in society and in workplaces. So how does your trauma-informed practice I guess, recognize that mental health issues can stifle safe spaces and the creation of brave spaces and collaboration? Mm-hmm. How can we approach our people when they might be struggling and help them to grow and thrive in an environment where they can take risks but maybe are still afraid to do so or afraid to speak up?
Yeah, thank you. Great question, and I think that's going to be an ongoing, every organization will wrestle with it, every leader will wrestle with it, every team will wrestle with it for, like, always. A few thoughts that I can offer in that regard. One of the key things to build in teams is the self-reliance. So when someone starts at Narratives, they go through, they build out a needs map, and it's this tool that we learned from the Good Life Institute. They've done some really great work down in the States. But essentially, you identify what your needs are as a person, and they fall into these 7 categories of autonomy. Let's see if I can remember them. Autonomy, autonomy, security, esteem, purpose, health, leisure, and community. And it's really fascinating as an exercise, so we ask people to go through this exercise to identify how are they currently meeting their need for autonomy. And autonomy includes your sense of personal freedom and your sense of social freedom. So imagine if you just start and you say, okay, well, to meet my need for social freedom, here's what I do right now. And to meet my sense of personal freedom, here's what I do right now. And you go through that exercise, and then you realize that actually there's some areas where I'm not doing much. So whenever I'm feeling off balance, it's probably because I'm not meeting my needs in one of those categories. So we have our team, everybody as a part of their onboarding exercise goes through that now. Once they do that, then based on their needs map, they build their self-care plan.
Wow, that sounds
And
great.
this is what trauma-informed practice essentially entails. So they'll build their self-care plan that comes from their needs map. And then once they've done that, the next step is they build their growth at narratives plan. So based on their needs, based on their self-care, based on where they want to go, organizationally, what does growth at narratives look like for them?
Wow.
All of that, what that does is it really helps us together build an understanding of what their journey at narratives could look like. So mental health is very much a part of that discovery, because when you're doing your needs map, you may realize you're lacking in your sense of belonging. You're lacking in your sense of purpose, or you're lacking in your esteem. So you realize going through that exercise that these are some areas that I need to, for myself, invest in. So it takes the responsibility away from one party or the other into a very much a shared responsibility. Because ultimately, there's only so much I as a leader can do, right? Like I can't rely on my team to take care of all of my mental health, and vice versa. So what this does is it really creates space, so safe space and a brave space for people to reclaim their agency. I am responsible for my mental health, and here's what my organization can do to support me. So it's a two-way street, and it allows for people to go much further.
But it sounds like you're opening the door to every new employee into a safe space right away, and making a very strong statement about the fact that you accept that whole person into your organization with all of their flaws and needs and skills and aspirations as well at the same time.
Absolutely.
Do you have an inspiring story about maybe someone who came into your organization and really thrived under this leadership?
I think, this is where you'll have to ask my team. I think for most people, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, and that's part of my own journey. I will actually lose sleep if someone on my team I feel is not doing well. So for me, it's so amazing to see people share what they do at Narratives, what it means to them, what Narratives has done for them. And that's part of, one example I'll share is we have people who will regularly leave to go back to school. And whether that's now pursuing a degree in law or going for their master's or a different field altogether. So the words that they express at this, lunch that we'll put together for them means a lot, and we typically reflect on what they said on their first day versus what they're saying now. And it's really meaningful to hear them talk about, I found my purpose when I worked at Narratives. Narratives helped me realize what I wanted to do, what I needed to do. And they feel comfortable saying that because from the very beginning, I tell every member of my team that it doesn't matter where you go from here, I will be your biggest cheerleader. And I really am. We've had people completely switch careers, and I'm still their cheerleader. I will always be their cheerleader, because why not? It's their journey. So I think relaying that to your team is really important.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I feel warm and supported just, listening to you talk, so I think it must be.
You should come join Narratives. Sorry, Eco Canada.
I love my job at Eco Canada. Going now into a little more technical and talking about AI and tools. You've learned to embrace the spreadsheet, but you probably never fell in love with it. How have you, or how do you plan to incorporate artificial intelligence into your impact assessment work?
Oh, great question. So I think I'll bring this to a couple of thoughts. One, if you've gone through a good exercise of knowing what the strengths are in your team, we have people on our team who love experimenting with different technologies. Great, bring them all together and say, I don't know 2 things about AI, so one, help me understand, and then let's test these things out. So, and they may not even be your technical staff, but they may know more about AI than someone who has done impact assessments for the last 20 years. So bring the right people in and run those tests. So, looking at how can you use something like ChatGPT to get started, to find some inspiration, to do an initial scan of tools. How can you better use Research Rabbit? By the way, if you haven't looked at Research Rabbit, you should take a look. It made me angry, but also excited.
Okay,
it was one of those tools where I thought, I can't believe I spent 2.5 years on my lit review for my PhD, and this thing helped me get a very similar, painfully close in 8 minutes.
Wow.
So check it out.
Say that name again?
Research
Rabbit. Check it out.
This is not an endorsement of Research Rabbit, but check it out. But all that means is, I think, just continuing to test it out. So I'll say, I don't think it would be fair to think that you can entirely rely on AI. Absolutely not. There's intuition, there is what your gut says about what the right decision might be. There's how do you get there? There's process. There's a lot that happens in the world of impact assessment that is human-centric, people-centric. How do we bring those elements together? There's no one-stop shop for that within the realm of AI, but you can lean on some of these tools to help get there maybe a little bit quicker. Unsure. We're still testing a bunch of things out.
Yeah, I have found that ChatGPT specifically has become sort of a friend that I talk to throughout the day. Sometimes when you're having trouble making a decision, you seek input from your team, but the path still isn't clear, and you just want to vet some ideas, you want to talk about different approaches. The machine doesn't know the answer, but it does help you think a little deeper about things. So I've really enjoyed having it as a companion through my workday, and I think that there are good uses for these tools. I think that there are inappropriate use for these tools. That's where the hierarchy and policy and procedure will come into play. But I have found that they've had a very positive impact on me and my workday as well.
I almost imagine what this exchange is going to look like 20 years from now. We'll be laughing at it.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Like, oh, we're talking about ChatGPT. Meanwhile, there were so many other things to explore. And that's a great point, Kim. I think, what's important is it can be a good tool to get you started, and then you run with it and you go for it, and there's other things that you incorporate, and that's where, your brain starts kicking in. It's like a cup of coffee in the morning, possibly, where it'll just get things started, and then you need to go from there.
Yeah.
One of the worst things, and this is sort of tying it back to the safe space, brave space conversation, is one of the worst things any leaders can do is say, nope, no AI, because I don't think AI is a good idea. The minute you shut your door to technology, you're isolating people who want to experiment with it, who may have some solutions, who may have some creativity and innovation around it. So as uncomfortable as it might make you, give it a whirl. I think, opening it up and working with your teams to explore it together may build some certainty, may build some comfort in testing it out.
I agree, and I think that a couple of the main things that will enable us to have that kind of environment and to promote appropriate use would be critical thinking skills, making sure that our people are exercising those, that they're critically looking at the output of these AI tools and saying, does this make sense? Is it missing something? do I need to curate my prompts better, or is this just not the tool for this task? So those critical thinking skills are essential. And on the part of the leader, I think trust becomes very important when we're using these AI tools, and our people are using them to produce things that end up external to our organizations, and we want to make sure it's the same level of quality or better than what we were doing on our own as humans, and just harnessing the time savings, really, so that we can keep doing more value-added things with that time. Other than trust and critical thinking, what do you think are some of the skills or enabling competencies that leaders should really embrace in this environment where innovation is essential to keeping up with competitors in the market, where we're inviting the whole employee with all of their different needs into the organization? The society is global, and we have diversity and different perspectives. How have leaders needed to evolve, and what skills should we continue to evolve to be good leaders in this environment?
Oh, big question. So and I'll offer a few thoughts there. I think one of the most powerful things a leader can work on for themselves is to never underestimate the power and the abilities that people who've worked in different geographies and markets bring to the table. So someone who's only born and raised in one particular environment will have all of these experiences related to that environment, compared to someone who's lived and experienced multiple environments will be able to reflect on some of those nuances that they may have picked up on. And if you think about all of your journeys, from the first time, I still cringe at looking at old emails that I've sent, and how did this happen?
Been there, done that.
Ooh, but they're done, it's in the past. But that's the nature of even all of our evolution, right? So we learn more with every conversation, with every new project, with every new setting that we're in. So if you imagine, diversity of the workforce means really creating space for people from different backgrounds and different lived experiences to come together, because they will offer nuances that some might not. They'll complement you in other ways that you might not. So that's one. The second one is to know where you as a leader, and this is where humility is a really important piece in a leader, is know where your weaknesses are. I know that I have a certain communication style, which is not going to work for all of my team members. I don't know if you all know the Berkman method of, assessing where your personalities lie.
I'm not familiar with that one.
So we had our team do these Berkman things, and they're always so fun, these exercises, but you realize where your communication style is. Well, in the Berkman system, I'm very much a red. I need to get things done, like, let's go, team. Well, that's not going to work for everybody, right? So as a leader, I have to have the emotional intelligence to look at what communication might work best with a team member. That's one. That doesn't mean that I have to always communicate with them based on their need for communication style. What that means is, when I work with them, I say, hey, so-and-so, my communication style is very different from yours. I tend to just go for it, so I apologize if this is going to come across as, rude or harsh. I'm still working on my style. There, you've created some space for yourself to continue to work on your style. They're going to probably forgive you a little bit if you're going for it, but you've created space for each other to explore how the next communication is going to be slightly better than the first one. So I think that ongoing nuance as leaders is really important. The other thing I'll offer is, there's no such thing as one perfect leader. Like, I still don't like spreadsheets, but once I get into it, it's kind of fun. But I know who on my team would love to geek out with me on a spreadsheet.
That's
great.
me.
Bring them.
I'll help you
So
with
there
the
you go.
spreadsheet.
So, bring people together to work together as a team, but be deliberate about what you're doing and tell them, hey, I need you because I suck at this. So can we work on this together? It's honest, it's transparent, and everybody loves it. It's like, great, I've actually provided some utility here, and we're working on this together.
Great. Well, your leadership style seems unique. You seem to be adapting well to all of these kinds of changes and expectations, generational, and how would you describe your leadership style, and what sort of lived experiences curated it over your career?
My leadership style very much is an outcome of my lived experience. Like, I came to Canada as a newcomer. I was 18 at the time. I grew up in the Gulf War. I come from I'm a survivor of partition, 1947, intergenerational survivor of that. So I come from a family that has historically always been a part of conflict mediation and conflict transformation in our communities. And so my leadership style is very much observing people and what they're saying versus what they're actually saying, and trying not to overanalyze and overthink, but really paying a lot of attention to people. And also, I'm so lucky to be alive. I'm so lucky to be here, and I don't take that for granted. I come from a culture of reciprocity, and my leadership style is very much based on that. That's also one of my top expectations. And I don't shy away from relaying my expectations, because if I don't, it's unfair to the person, because they don't know what I want. So, and I will tell them that hey, so-and-so, if you don't understand what I'm asking, please tell me, because I need to make sure that we get each other. So it's very much evolved as a part of my own experiences in Canada and prior to.
Yeah. I like what you said about there being no perfect leader. There are leadership styles that work for some people that don't work for others. They are informed by our own experiences and values. Do you have any advice for potentially any new or young leaders in the audience about them embarking upon their own leadership journey and curating their own leadership style? I know that when I was a young leader, I read a book that I can still recite some of the paragraphs, even though I haven't read it, because it was so impactful. And it was a Covey book, The Speed of Trust. And that overlying trust value has really informed my leadership style. And I think it makes my teams very efficient.
Yeah.
When you're not having to second guess, double check. I need to be able to trust the people on my team, and I make sure that they can trust me as well. So that was really impactful for me. And then, a couple other concepts that I had picked up through various leadership training. Servant leadership really spoke to me. I really like being a very supportive behind-the-scenes leader. So these things were what helped me when I was early in my career to shape my own leadership style. What advice might you have for young leaders in our audience?
Great question. And I'll say this is a great example of different leadership styles. Like, if someone asked me about servant leadership, I'd be like, nope, not my style, right? But we both are able to run these very effective teams. So there's many different leadership styles. What advice I would have for folks who are emerging leaders is find which leaders inspire you. It's so important for leaders to be inspiring and to be motivational and to be relentlessly positive. I just picked that up this morning. Find leaders that resonate with you, and also work with leaders. Like, at the end of the day, we're all humans. And as leaders, it's really lonely at the top. So for leaders, that feedback is so important from their team. So when I first came, my first job, my boss started working at 6 a.m. Good luck trying to have me wake up at 6 a.m. But he would start working at 6 a.m. I wanted him to know and wanted to learn from him so badly, I would show up at the office at 5:50 a.m. and be out there waiting for him to open the door. So I wanted my leader to see me. And I took all these steps to make sure that he saw me. And then when he would go for client meetings, he would bring me along. I was very careful about what my place there is. And if there was something that was said in a meeting that didn't click or that I completely disagreed with, I would never, ever say a word in a client meeting. When we'd come back, I would say to my boss that I have a question about something that was talked about, and I'm wondering if I could talk to you about it. Great, respectfully approached. And he would say, of course. And I said, you offered this and this. Could you walk me through your thinking there? Never said, I totally disagreed with you. Could you walk me through your thinking? Because what that did is, it created an opportunity for my boss to share their thinking with me. It created an opportunity for me to learn and learn their style and learn from what they were saying. So as a leader at his end at the time, he was happy to coach me and mentor me. So I found a mentor in my leader. So if you're an emerging leader, look at who are the leaders around you that really resonate with you and make mentors out of them. They'd love to share with them as long as you're, smart in how you approach it.
Yeah, and receptive and
yeah, absolutely.
That's great. So let's talk about leadership beyond the internal organization. You've got some great work going on at Narratives and also a nonprofit that's pretty new. I'd like to hear a little bit about those.
Sure. So I've talked a lot about Narratives, so you all know about Narratives now, but I'll talk a little bit about Kahani. So I'm so excited about this. This is something that I've been thinking about for years and years and years. And so the word Kahani means story in 3 languages, and no surprise, I love stories. I love the concept of storytelling. Kahani is, the launch is planned for later this year. Website in development, brand, logo, etc. in development. The main function of Kahani is going to be to leverage stories and storytelling for peace building. And the first campaign that I'm planning for Kahani is Music for Peace. So this idea of bringing people together to share about the stories behind their instruments, or stories behind why they took up a certain instrument, what it meant for them when they were growing up, and bringing people together from these different diverse backgrounds and different countries and geographies that are conflict with each other to come around the table to have conversations around something that we may all be able to relate to. So Music for Peace is the first campaign. And then the second one, my favorite also, is Food for Peace. Everybody has something deep fried in their background. Doesn't matter how much you hate each other, you got something deep fried. So bringing people together in conversations around food and so on in a structured dialogue setting, so that we can see that we're beyond just what we hate about each other. There's a lot more about the human experience that's actually very similar.
My Dutch background is primarily fried food.
There you go.
Very delicious. Well, we've just got about maybe 5 more minutes before we open up the Q&A, so I'd just like to give you an opportunity to give us your final thoughts on the topic of evolving leadership, AI, and this boundaryless world that we're leading teams within.
Yeah, thank you, Kim. I'll just offer, I think one of the things that we forget as leaders is we are also human, and we forget. We often get carried away. I'm going to stop saying we. I'll say I. I often get carried away with trying to meet the expectations of the world around me and try to meet the expectations of every person on my team. I think as leaders, it's really important to remember that there are and there must be boundaries. So I have to be able to lead through example, which means I have to be able to demonstrate that there are certain boundaries. So confession, I came in yesterday, I was so tired. I really wanted to come to the gala because I heard there was a hypnotist and everything. So
I actually got on stage, which is
Whoa.
way outside my comfort zone.
ooh, congratulations.
And I'm hoping there was no video.
Ooh.
No, no, he's smiling. I think there might be.
There's a video. There's a video coming. Yeah. So, but I was so tired. I'd had a long week and everything that I made this decision for myself that I'm just going to pick up a Nat Geo and read it and fall asleep. So I fell asleep by 7. The hypnotist probably wasn't even there by then. So I fell asleep at 7, but I made that decision for myself based on my needs map, based on my self-care plan, that I really needed to recharge my batteries. What the expectation would be, and this would be an expectation that I would put on myself, nobody's asking me for it, but would be that I'm here, I better show up, I better mingle and network and do all the things that as a leader of an organization I should do, but I chose differently. So as leaders, know where you want to be and make sure that you're making time for yourselves to not get lost in the noise. Same with leadership style. Make sure your leadership style is something that you first understand, as opposed to building a leadership style that is entirely based on what people's expectations are of you. So have that confidence, believe in your instincts, talk to your gut, and follow your style.
Great. Really good takeaways. I've picked up some stuff from you today, too. I agree that it's a constant learning, a constant evolution, constant adaptation to the environment around us, that we need to continue working on if we're going to be successful and help our teams grow and thrive. So I really love speaking to people like you with different experiences than I have and picking up a few things from my toolbox. So I've really enjoyed the chat. Now is the chance for our audience to invite themselves into the conversation. So if you have any questions for Soumya or myself, there's a moderator with a mic at the back of the room. If you put your hand up, she'll bring it over to you, and you're welcome to join us.
Hi. My question is just going back to that self-care plan quiz that you do for onboarding. Who's that through? Or because that would be great.
Yeah, we've built it based on feedback and discussing with several entities. So one of the areas that I believe in coaches. So I have a coach myself. Our team has a group of advisors, including a clinical psychologist, someone who specializes in organizational growth, someone whose background is in understanding and how to implement decolonization methods. So we've relied on a lot of these different experts and their backgrounds to be able to build our approach. But if you're looking for some language around needs-based growth, it's the Good Life Institute. You can look them up. They do a little bit of talking about it, but then we've taken some of those ideas, blended with our own, and recognizing our team's needs to be able to build something.
Other questions?
Good morning. Thank you very much for the eye-opening, actually, conversation today. I do very much appreciate it. I do have a question about micromanagement. Just wondering, if you can touch base on some of the factors that could, lead actually a great leader to be more of a micromanager than career coach, or helping the employees to also have some sort of a growth?
That's a great question. So, and there's so much I want to say, but I'll keep it short. So I think it would be important to understand why the leader may be micromanaging. So one of the things that Narratives does is trauma-informed practice, or we do coaching in trauma-informed principles, trauma-informed leadership, and so on. We want to be able to take a step back from the action or the approach to understand why someone might be doing that. So someone who's micromanaging may have some serious issues trusting people. And why is that? They may have had life experiences that allow them or do not allow them to be able to trust people very easily. So, and if you knew that as a person working with them, then you would be careful about building that trust over time and not just assume that, oh, this person is a micromanager, I don't know what to do about it, we're all going to go our separate ways. So what that does is it builds a few levels of trying to work together. The other thing is, I say this now, but my management style is I don't like micromanaging my team. If anything, I'll give my big vision and say, let's find a way to make it happen. But I do have an expectation that they'll let me know how things are going. The flip side of that is, when I was an emerging leader, I hated being micromanaged because it's not my style. What I did, though, was I tried to better understand why I was being micromanaged, and the outcome of that was we had two very, very different styles, and I at that time chose to work with someone different where our styles matched better. So I think trying to get to the why is important. And if you're a leader who micromanages yourself, that self-reflection is important for you as well. Why do you feel the need to micromanage?
I guess it's another reason it's important to know what your needs and goals are, because sometimes it might make sense to put yourself in a different situation because those styles don't match, but perhaps in some cases it might make sense to adapt.
Yep.
And to accept the situation for what it is and learn to thrive in it anyway.
Absolutely.
But I agree with you completely that trust is very important in that answer, for sure, and figuring out how you can nurture it. We have time for some more questions.
Hi, first of all, I just want to say I really enjoyed the conversation. My question is around how would you suggest leaders to balance, dealing with people according to their own, work style, and also not look like you're favoring the person, right? In teams, you see that a lot. Why is that person getting a pass, right?
Right.
Even though in a lot of cases it might be because of their personal situations that the leader knows, but the rest of the team doesn't.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest for that?
That's a great question, and thank you so much for asking that question. So I think, and I'll offer a few thoughts here. One, I think in general, we as a population do not understand the difference between equality and equity. And I'll give you a very real example that we're wrestling with. So I celebrate Eid. That's my holiday. Our country, though, is set up for celebration of Christian holidays. So I have staff who celebrate Eid, who celebrate Diwali, who celebrate other, whether that's cultural or religious holidays. For me as a leader, how do I balance what holidays people get to celebrate? When it's a Christian holiday, the entire country is celebrating.
And there's
lights
employment laws
and music and so on.
saying that you have to
Exactly.
conform
When
to that
it's
schedule.
Eid, I might get a day off and I might fight for a day off, but it's just me celebrating with my family. The entire country is not celebrating with me. How do I, as a leader in the workplace, create space for people to be able to celebrate their holidays? So we've been wrestling with this at Narratives for the last year and trying to find, okay, how do we create an environment where people who are celebrating other holidays can have a day off with the same terms. Apparently our employment standards don't allow for that. It would be illegal for me to go down that path. This is being recorded. It would be illegal for me to go down that path, but I want to be able to do it. So we've actually been speaking to a few lawyers about how do we push that particular boundary, but what do we do in the meantime? So we're having this conversation with our team to say, hey, everybody, we're trying to figure out a way to do this So we'll bring all of you into the conversation so we can figure out how to do it together. Now, if we were able to create other holidays as holidays, does that mean those folks also gets complicated,
Now
right?
your organization has a paid day off for every holiday of
Exactly.
every religion, but what do the agnostics get?
Exactly, absolutely, right? And it's a totally fair question. So, and we've already had that question, well, I don't celebrate any religious holidays, but I might celebrate this. So, all that to say, safe space, brave space, is the ability to have that conversation with your team so that they can see how I, as a leader, am wrestling with it, with them. I got the same challenges as them. But that was not your question, my dear. Okay. So I think that's how we create those spaces for people to be able to, favoritism, it came back to me, thank you. So, easier said than done, you know. I have members on my team who I'm like, I'm gonna cheer for you no matter what. And then there's other members on my team where I'm like, I really wanna cheer for you, but you're making it hard for me. It happens. I am a human being. I think we have to try and balance it, just how as parents, you can't pick your favorite child. Again, this is being recorded. I can't tell, my kids can't watch this. But we can't pick our favorites, but I think it's important for people to understand the process, the thought process that a leader is going through so that they can see that it's not just because I like Sam over Julie. It's not like that. So transparency is what I would offer, would probably go a long way.
Absolutely, and I completely agree. Involving people in that decision-making or communicating that the struggles you're having in that decision-making would go a long way. We have time for one more question before closing. We have taught them everything they need to know about leadership.
This is great.
In less than an hour. That's amazing. Well, we'll close the enlightening discussion that we've had here today. I want to extend a heartfelt thank you to Somia, and I hope I get to share some time with you on stage again at Impact 2025. Your experience and perspectives have really enriched this conversation and guided us to a deeper level of understanding. So I thank you very much. Let's move forward with a resolve to embrace change, embrace technology and ambiguity, and lead with a vision that transcends our traditional boundaries. So together we can chart the path to a more connective, innovative, and sustainable future. I hope that you've really enjoyed our chat today and that you get a lot out of the coming sessions. We have a 30-minute networking break coming up right now, so feel free to grab yourself some coffee and meet a new friend. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you.